Assalamualaikum and hi. Today me and my groupmates are going to present a topic regarding employed persons in Malaysia. Okay, to start it off with the introduction. Okay, univariate models are data types that only require the formulation of one variable. So this univariate modeling is a projective forecasting technique in which predicted values are derived using knowledge from previous observations. Okay, this is based on the premise the data pattern behavior as shown in prior periods will continue in the future. So single variable, or as we call univariate, models are less expensive to create and understand when used as forecasting exercise. So this variable model have become popular strategies among practitioners and organizations because of its own practicability, in addition to being such beneficial for rapid forecasting exercises. Nevertheless, they have one fundamental drawback, is that they lack the requisite explanatory power. Okay, the main statistics of the employed persons in Malaysia from 2001 to 2020 will be the topic for our research. So the goal is to have better comprehend in the evaluation of employed persons from 2001 to 2010, as well to evaluate the data in order to determine the pattern and future trend. Okay, moving on to the problem statement. So the first problem statement is, what is the data pattern model of employed persons in Malaysia? Okay. Second is, what is the right model for analyzing data on employed persons in Malaysia? And the last one is, what pattern of the trend line exists in the data series when employed persons in Malaysia during the next few years? Okay, on to the research objectives. The first objective is to study the data pattern model of employed persons in Malaysia. Next is to determine the right model for analyzing data on the employed persons in Malaysia. And the third one is to calculate the reliable forecast values for employed persons in Malaysia.
In 2.1 double exponential smoothing method, the journal by Havit Safwan titled Forecasting Unemployment Rate in North Sumatra using double exponential method. Brown approach, commonly known as double exponential smoothing or in short form DES, is beneficial for series with linear trends. There are several advantages that could have been gained by using DES, as model of DES meshes well with a computer system. Therefore, basic spreadsheet application like Microsoft Excel can be utilized to create new forecasts. Besides that, the data storage requirement is lower when compared to other forecasting methods. Lastly, DES reacts quicker to change in data pattern than the moving average. The goal of the research is to use the double exponential smoothing method to forecast unemployment rate in province of North Sumatra in 2020. The information used comes from North Sumatra Province Central Agency Statistics, or in short form BPS, and the data was collected over a 20-year period. From 2000 to 2019, MAD is used to count the number of errors, MAC is used to evaluate forecasting method, and MAPE is used to calculate the percentage of error in the study accuracy approach. The research used an alpha of 0.6 of MAD of 77402.12 and MSC of 12524960448.31 and a MAPE of 16.35% to anticipate the number of unemployment individuals in North Sumatra in 2020. The total of people live in the 2020 period is 381,459 people. In 2.2, in the journal by Muhammad Nasir titled An National Study of the Forecast Study for Unemployment Rate, they conduct a study on the unemployment rate using data series from the Labour Force Survey. The method of forecast that they will be using is naive with trend model, average change model, double exponential smoothing, and Holt's method model. But in this journal, we'll be focusing on naive with trend method to see if it's a suitable method to use in forecasting the unemployment rate. In the naive with trend model, it implies that all future forecasts can be set to equal the actual observed value in the most recent time period plus the growth rate. This model is highly sensitive to changes in the actual values. A sudden drop or even a sharp increase will severely affect the forecast. In the study, the smallest MSC value is seeming as suitable method. The conclusion of the study in the forecasting quarter unemployment rate, naive trend is not suitable method to use for this research. This is because the study that have been conducted, the naive trend has the largest MSC, which is 0.2503. Instead, the Holt's method model is the most suitable method. This is because each model type has its own set of characteristics that are tailored to a certain data set to ensure fitting longer series of unemployment rate. Further forecasting techniques should be researched. Uniterative model technique are single variable model that generate forecast value based on a prior data. This is based on the premise that the predict value are completely determined by the data series previous behavior. In 2.3 average change model, we'll be using the same journal as we conducted by Muhammad Nasir They also have run a forecast on unemployment rate by using the average change model. The average change model assumes that the forecast value is equal to the actual value for the current period plus the average of all absolute changes up to that point in time. When the historical data being analyzed is characterized by similar size, period-to-period variation, this model is very useful. However, this model has a tendency to lag behind turning points, and when calculating forecast value, all periods are weighted equally regardless of importance. In this study, in order to determine the most recommended forecasting method, the decision is to focus on the MSC value. The smallest MSC value is deemed to be the most suitable forecast method to use. The average change model has the MSC value of 0.2028, which is lower than being compared to naive trend in the study, but it is insignificant when being compared to the double exponential smoothing, which have an MSC of 0.0812 and Hope method that have 0.0722. In a nutshell, the average change model is not recommended in this study. In 2.4 Holt's method, the journal was written and published by Maria Elena Nor. The title, Forecasting of Unemployment Rate in Malaysia Using Exponential Smoothing Method. The goal is to analyze the most accurate forecasting method and choose the most appropriate time frame for predicting Malaysia unemployment rate in 2016. There are 5 different sets of unemployment rates in Malaysia and 3 different forecasting methods are used: naive, simple, exponential smoothing, or in short form SES and Holt's method. The forecasting model was then chosen based on the accuracy measurement that were the smallest. The method that we will be focusing in this literature review is Holt method. In their study, they put Holt method to the test to see whether they could expand the simple exponential smoothing to bring the forecast closer to the observed value. The conclusion that the research has reached is both Holt method and SES technique were appropriate for forecasting Malaysia's unemployment rate. As a result, both of the methodologies indicate for projecting Malaysia's unemployment rate for various data sets and periods were applied. 2.5 Simple Exponential Smoothing Method. In the same journal of study by Mariana Eliana Nor, they conduct a study of unemployment rate in Malaysia using the Simple Exponential Smoothing Method, or in short form SES. In the study, Simple Exponential Smoothing predicts future value of a time series by only previous values. It is also good to utilize when there is no trend or seasonality in the data. Current findings were given more weight than observation made in the past. The conclusion in their study shows that the ideal method for forecasting unemployment rate for male yearly is Holt's method, but for female yearly unemployment rate is much more suitable to use simple exponential smoothing.
Next, we will go for the method used for this project. First, naive forecast. This model assumes a strong deterministic relationship, implying that the current event will have an impact on future outcomes. This model is frequently used as a comparison model for more sophisticated models. Secondly, we will use naive quick trend forecast. Organizations typically adopt the naive quick trend model. It may also be used with every short time series, and it can be employed in many businesses where insufficient data is a common problem. Address the problem. This model samples formula as it follows. Furthermore, average change model. Because of its longevity and adaptability, organizations frequently adopt the average change model. It is based on the assumption that the predicted value equals the actual value for the current period plus the average of absolute change up to that point in time. It is given as follows. Moreover, we will use average percent change model. Contrast to the average change model, which measures change in absolute terms, monitors change in relative terms. The dependent variables forecast according to the model is equal to the actual level for the current period plus to the average of percentage change from one time period to the next. It might be stated properly as follows. Next, we will use single exponential method. The single exponential method is a time series forecasting technique that lacks any discernible trend or seasonality. Because it just requires one parameter, it is the simplest type of model. This model's formula is as follows. Number 6, double exponential method. The Brown approach, commonly known as the double exponential smoothing method, applies 2 weights to the component at each time, also known as smoothing parameters. In double exponential smoothing, a level component and a trend component are utilized at each term. The following 5 formulae will be needed to complete the model. Lastly, we will use Holt's method. To counteract the unpredictable effects, Holt's approach might be employed. 2 parameters are involved in the technique, and which can directly smooth the trend and slope, as well as allow additional freedom in setting the pace at which the trend and slope are followed. To conduct this approach and calculate future values, 3 questions are used.
Alright, 3.4 Error Measure. A model positioned as a good model is not determinant of the occurrence of the single successful forecast. A good forecast model, on the other hand, is one that consistently produces good forecast value. As a result, it is not uncommon for a forecaster to evaluate a series of errors that have been generated over time and across time series before they decide to remodel quality. The error is criteria used to differentiate between the bad forecast model and the good forecast model. Despite the fact of the various error measurement that currently accessible, only 4 are regarded of the most common among researchers, which is MSE, RSME, MIP, and GRMSE. MSE is commonly used to compare the model forecast performance. Most statistics software include the standard criteria and error measurement used by most practitioners for measurement the model fitness and certainty of the data. As you can see, this is a formula of MSE. Alright, the fundamental disadvantage of the MIP is that it is only valid for ratio scale data, which is limited to use. Alright, MIP is potentially explode for huge forecast errors. So this is the formula of the MIP, where is the n is effectively data point, and ET per YT times 100 is defined as the absolute percentage error calculation. Show that the number of the male employed workers in Malaysia from 2001 until 2020. For the graph, the pattern is the trend is decreased from 2003 to until Alright, 4.1 background of data. Figures show that the number of the employed workers in Malaysia from 2001 until 2020. From the graph, the pattern of the trend is increased from 2003 until 2005, and from 2005 until 2009, where I can see the increase in employment rate. From 2017, it started to decrease, but in 2020, we can see the highest number.
Next is model evaluation, and from all the models we managed to produce a table, and you can see the table with values of MSE and MAPE. To evaluate the model, the best model is the one with the minimum MSE, mean square error, and minimum mean absolute percentage error. And from all the methods that we tried, knife with trend model has the smallest MAPE value, and double exponential smoothing technique has the smallest MSE value for estimation. So as a result, we decide to use both knife with trend and also double exponential smoothing technique. Next is forecast. So the first model that we use to forecast is double exponential model, and this is the graph that we managed to produce for forecasting for the year 2021. For 2021, the fitted value of employed persons from the double exponential smoothing technique is the fitted value is 15,048.89891. The next model that we use is knife with trend model. So from this model, we managed to produce this graph with the forecast value for 2021 using knife with trend model.
The fitted value for 2021 using knife with trend model for employed persons in Malaysia is 14,840.9035.
Next, we head into our chapter 5, which is conclusion and recommendation. For conclusion, the best model for fitting data for Malaysia employed persons is double exponential smoothing technique or knife with trend, which has the lowest mean square error and mean absolute percentage error. And the double exponential smoothing technique has the lowest mean square error of all models, and this is why it is the best model to use in forecasting future values. The goal was also accomplished as shown in figure 4.4.1, 4.4.2, and the number of employed persons in Malaysia every year shows that the graph trend line alternates between. There are a few recommendations that we can give for Malaysia to increase the employment rate. The first recommendation is to encourage people to start businesses to increase job opportunities. The second one is to provide allocation for small business, for example loans and training, which requires money from the government. Third is for the government to control and regulate the number of foreign workers into the country for work. And the last one is to lower the retirement age so that the opportunities for young generation can increase as the number of jobs available increases. That is all from us. Thank you.